Well, hello, everybody. My name is Cody Bahlau. I work on the research vessel, the Marcus G. Langseth. Everybody can hear me okay?
Yeah.
Yeah, good. So I like to have an interactive talk. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the research vessel, life on board for the scientists and for the crew, some of the science we do, some of the places that we've been to. But if you do have questions sort of throughout the talk, you can raise your hand. Your teacher can call on you. And then at the end, we'll have a little bit more of a question and answer session as well that we can dive into some more questions. But feel free, as I go, if you do have a question on the moment, you can ask. So I'm from Michigan, just south of where you're at. I went to the University of Michigan for school. Who likes the University of Michigan? Anybody?
Go blue. Go blue.
You have about
Nope.
half my class.
Oh, go blue. Yeah. The rest is go white, I'm sure. Yeah. So I work on Columbia University. So it's out of New York City. They have a research boat that goes all around the world doing different types of science. It's just about a football field long. So it's 70 yards long by 20 yards wide. And we have anywhere from 40 to 50 people on board, depending on what type of expedition we're doing. So right now it's about 45 people we have on board. And those people range from quite a bit of different backgrounds. So we have scientists with PhDs. We have people in school that are working on their undergraduate degree. So they just left high school a couple years ago. We have people like me who are technicians. We have a technical background, maybe an IT or electronics background. I studied geology in school. We have the maritime crew. So just like Star Trek, you're going to have the captain, the chief engineer, the different people who work on board the boat. So there's many different paths that a person can take to get here. We can talk a little bit more about that later, but I just sort of wanted to highlight that now. So I'm going to show you a video of the boat so you can have a sort of a look at it here. So what we're looking at first, so this is something that we tow in the water behind the boat. These are a seismic source. So they make a large noise in the water. The noise goes down and reflects off the rocks below the surface, and we can make a map of the rocks below the ocean. And the scientists use that to look at plate tectonics, to look at volcanoes, potential earthquake zones, things like that. So now we're going to fly in on the Marcus G. Langseth. So we use all these different terms at sea. Sometimes they seem a little bit silly, but this is the stern of the boat or the back of the boat. And we're coming alongside the right-hand side or the starboard side of the boat. So we can kind of see as we come in. So as I mentioned before, it's 70 yards long by 20 yards wide. So here we're on the starboard side. That big sort of square that you're looking at right there in the center, that's called the A-frame. And we use that to deploy different type of scientific instruments off the side. Now we're coming up to the front of the boat or the bow. This is where the captain works. All the bridge officers work up there. Those things that you see on top, that's for the radar. So just like at an airport where they see planes in the air, we have a radar to see other ships on the water. So now we're coming on the left side or the port side. You see two small little boats there. That's a fast rescue boat that if in case something happens, we can put that in the water and go out and rescue somebody. And a science workboat. So we can deploy that little workboat, go out and deploy certain instruments into the water. So now we're back on the stern of the vessel where we had different types of instrumentation deployed off there. So living on board is quite different. So just imagine in school there, so you have 20, 25 people in your class. So let's say you and another 6th, 7th grade class all live together for 4 to 5 weeks at a time. So you're down at the cafeteria eating food every day. We don't call it a cafeteria on board. We call it a mess room. Like I say, we have different names on board. So this would be an example of the mess room. So just sort of probably similar to your cafeteria. There's bench seating. This is where everybody's going to get their food. We call the kitchen the galley. So here's a picture of the galley. So it's sort of hot type food. You know the trays. You get your plate buffet style. You work your way through the line. And just like as I mentioned, all the different types of jobs on board. Here we have cooks on board. They have a cooking background. They can do cooking or culinary school, things like that. So a couple other things on board. We have a little movie room. So it's a big screen TV, some comfy chairs. We have a PlayStation. We have an Xbox for people when they're not working. They can go in and play some games and watch the movies. We also have a little library on board. Not probably as big as your school's library, but we have a small little library on board. It's more of a quiet room where people can sit and enjoy the enjoy the quiet. So this is where the captain sits up on the bridge where he drives the boat. As you see, there's no big wheels up there. Everything is done just like a game now, with little knobs, little levers, and whatnot. Almost like your game controller at home. That's how they drive the boat. So you can see the radars there. You see some different displays. One of the red chairs is where the captain is. So there's quite a lot going on. All the radios you can see up there, and the gym. So we have a small gym. People can go and lift some weights and run on the treadmill when the seas aren't too rough, of course, and they can do the elliptical and try to stay in shape. The food's pretty good on board, so sometimes it's hard. So that's a little bit about the boat. Any questions so far about what we just looked at?
No questions right now.
Okay. A couple of other things that we do, just like you would probably have at the start of the school year. You maybe had a school drill or a fire drill or a tornado drill. So we have something similar as well. When we first come on board the boat, we have a drill. Everybody goes up on the muster station is what it's called. So the muster station, probably similar to like at school, is where everybody's going to gather. Your teacher would take the number of the class to make sure that everybody is there. We do the same. So once everybody gets up there, I have a board with some names on it that I have to go through the names to check to make sure that all my team is there. So if anything does happen, for example, a fire on board, the crew can then go fight the fire without having to rescue anybody or to worry about having to rescue anybody. So this would be the example of a muster station. So sometimes at sea, the seas, or sometimes offshore, the seas can be rough. So this is an example in Iceland where we had some rough seas.
All hands, hoist the colors high. Heave ho, thieves and beggars, never shall we die.
What do you think? Did it look pretty calm or rough? Yeah, go ahead.
One of our questions that we had as we were thinking about it is your job dangerous? So I think you've kind of answered that.
Well, sometimes, yeah, we try to make everything as safe as possible. So we have some good procedures and good processes that we look at the hazards in the workspace, and we try to, look at the risks that go along with those. And then we try to prevent and mitigate anything that can happen. So when the seas are like that on deck, for example, that's when we would call a stop to the deck operations. And then, we, of course, wear life jackets. We wear something called a PLB, a personal locator beacon. It's essentially a GPS. If you fall in the water, it sends a signal and the boat can be able to find a person. Obviously, we don't plan for someone to fall in the water. But if something does happen, we try to prevent anything serious from happening. So nobody's falling in the water on board the boat, but we try to plan to prevent anything like that. So yeah. So, but it can be, we're a long ways away from shore. So I shared my screen here. So this should look familiar to some people. Deer Lake, I'm sure you guys have heard of that probably. So, here, the hospital, the ambulance is just right down the road. So if something happens, you're able to call 911 and get some help. So offshore, we're a long ways away from shore. So this is another sort of career path that people can get into, is an offshore medic or doctor. So on board the boat, on board this one, our captain is our primary medical provider. But on other larger vessels, they'll have a dedicated sort of EMT, sort of like a similar to a person who goes on an ambulance. Or they'll even have a doctor if it's at that stage. Because we're so far away, and if the number of people is quite a bit, they need that sort of preventive type care. So right now I'll show you here. So let's zoom out. So here we can see the state of Michigan, of course. So right now, we're all the way down here. So we just left San Diego, California, and we zoom in. So that's us right there, the Marcus G. Langseth. So we're off the coast of Mexico, the Baja Peninsula, but we're going to continue transiting, and we're going to be working down here. Can everybody see that? These green dots down here?
Mm-hmm.
So that's 500 or 600 miles away from the Galapagos Islands, which are here. Maybe you've heard of those with the swimming iguanas, with the giant tortoises. That's down in the Galapagos. Maybe in history you read about the theory of evolution, Charles Darwin. So that happened, or well, some of it happened in the Galapagos Islands. But the point is that this is going to be 500 or 600 miles away from really anything. So if something happens on board, that captain is that primary medical provider. We have access to a telemedicine. So we have an instrument that we can hook up to a person, and then we can call in a video chat to a doctor on shore, and they can help the captain with anything that's serious. So that's sort of another career path, as I mentioned before. So we've looked at, so just in the Marine crew, they go to a maritime school, but you're going to have a captain or the bridge officers. You're going to have engineers. You're going to have some sort of a health provider, cooks, even people that clean the rooms. They're called stewards. So they go and they clean the rooms. They mop the floors. So it's a total 360 sort of career path that would lead you to something like this on a research vessel. We were just in the Galapagos not too long ago. Let me pull up another some more pictures here for you. So here's a little video I made not too long ago. So this was us. We were in the islands last month. We were down there working, and when we weren't working, some of the crew took some extra time and had some fun. So you just saw a shark go past. That's a sea turtle, obviously. So a few other things here. So that's one of the giant tortoises, iguana. And some sea lions. That's a lava tube. Yeah. So, when you're not working on the research vessel, you have time to go to port, to see, whatever country we're in, to sort of see the culture, to see the people, to see the different things that country's famous for. So we're able to, yeah, go ahead.
We have one question.
Yeah, go ahead.
What do you do if someone has like a medical emergency, like a heart attack or something?
Yeah, that's a fantastic question. So depending on where we're working, we have different emergency procedures. So before we go into that country, our office, along with the captain, will work up sort of our emergency response plan. So if we're working off the United States, for example, off of California, so with the local towns, we'll have the numbers to the hospitals, we'll have the number to the Coast Guard. So if something does happen, the captain will stabilize the person on board the boat with the help of the doctors from George Washington University is where they're from. And then they'll call 911, they'll call the hospital, and they'll also call the Coast Guard. So we'll start to sail in or steam in to the coast so we can get close enough for the Coast Guard helicopter, then fly out and then get the person off the boat and take them to the hospital. So if we're in another country, for example, in Ecuador, we'll have the Ecuador emergency response numbers that we can then do something similar. It won't be the Coast Guard, it'll be their version, but that'll assist us in sort of helping that person get to the hospital. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
That's a good question. Yeah. That's part of the part of the planning process that goes in before we move into a certain area. Yeah, good question. Let's see, what else? So another thing, I don't know if you've talked about it in school, I'm sure everybody knows about it maybe, but the Panama Canal. So we were working on the east coast of the United States. We then traveled to the west coast. So there's a couple ways to do that. Let me share my screen again. So before the Panama Canal, the boats had to come all the way around South America and then back up to the West Coast. So as you can imagine, that took a long time, a lot of fuel. And then in the early 1900s, they built the Panama Canal, which is in the country of Panama, which makes sense based on the name. So the canal goes right through here. So 9 months ago, our boat here went through the canal. I have a little time-lapse video of it. It's pretty neat. Sharing this. I don't know if you can see it with the video speed that we have here, but what was everybody able to see it or not?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the boat going into the locks. So the locks, if you studied in science class, it's essentially a large elevator for a boat. So here's a small little cartoon video. The boat comes in from the left. It goes into the first lock. So they use the water pressure from the lake to fill the lock to raise the boat up to the level of the second lock. The boat then sails into the second lock. They'll close the doors. They fill the water again to the height of the third lock. The boat sails in. They close the doors. They raise the water, and then so that's how they lift the vessel up, sort of a big boat elevator. So we did that. It was about 9 months ago. We went through the canal. It takes about 16 hours from beginning to end to sail through. And then after that, we were on the west coast of Panama or the Pacific Ocean, and then we continued up to California. So let's look at a few other things here. So right now, what we're doing, we're sailing down. I showed you on the map. So right now, we're sailing down to these green dots here, which you can see. So what these are locations for us to drop an instrument that's called an OBS, which is an ocean bottom seismometer. It's an instrument probably, well, I don't know if you guys are sitting in desk or not, but think of a standard school desk, maybe about 2 times that standard size. And it's an instrument that has a geophone on it. So it measures the tremors of the earth. So if there's any earthquakes, if there's any seismic activity, this instrument is going to measure it on the bottom of the ocean. So what we do is we sail to a certain drop point. The captain sails to it. He'll call down on the radio and say, we're 50 yards from the dropped point. The crew on deck will be prepared. We raise the instrument up and over the side of the vessel, and then we just drop it off the side. And I have a little video here. Let me show you.
I've been the one. You have been the one for me. Goodbye, my lover. Goodbye, my friend. You have been the one. You have been the one for me.
So what that does then, so as you saw them drop it, so then that free falls to the bottom. So it falls at about, so I'm going to switch to the metric system here because that's what we normally use offshore. So it falls to 45 to 50 meters per minute as it falls to the water column. The water depth here is 3,000 meters. So that's quite a long ways to get down to the bottom. So we're talking hour and a half just for it to sink from surface all the way down to the bottom. Now we have different currents in the ocean that are going to push that around. We have some different instrumentation behind us that can help us measure the current. We can look at the bottom of the ocean. As we come up on that point, we have a system here that's called a multi-beam that we can make a map of the ocean, make a map of the ocean floor. And if it looks very rocky, if there's large ledges, we can tell the captain, hey, this doesn't look like a good spot right here. Let's move a bearing of 50 degrees and let's go 500 meters. So he's going to take the boat 50 degrees off, and then we're going to go 500 meters, and then we'll drop it there where it looks better. We also have a system that we can measure the current of the ocean. It's over here. And we can look sort of at the current. So if there's a strong current pushing in one direction, we can move the vessel. So when we drop it, it takes into account that current, and we can sort of land it where we want. So we have a lot of different instrumentation that we use. So you can see behind me some different maps that we keep track of the boat. We have a screen up here that's a navigation screen that we look at the vessel speed. So we have 2 different speeds offshore. We have a ground speed and we have a water speed. Does anybody know why we would have 2 speeds that we have to track? Can anybody answer that, you think?
Because the water has like a higher friction, so you would go slower in the water, and so it would be different from the ground.
Yeah. That's exactly right. So you mentioned the water, and you mentioned how that affects speed. So we're going to have the current. So just like in a lake, or if you have tides. So in the oceans, you have different currents, and that affects how the boat or the speed of the boat as it travels through. So if we're going, let's say in a perfect vacuum, we're going 10 miles an hour, or offshore we call it 10 knots. So if we're going 10 knots, traveling along a line, but we have a 2-knot current that we're going into, so our actual ground speed is only 8 knots. Does that make sense? Because we're going against a 2-knot current.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So we have to keep track of sort of two different speeds as we sort of work offshore. So we're going to drop the OBS down to the bottom. We're going to survey them in. So we have people on board the vessel who are OBS technicians. They're very good at preparing the equipment, at using acoustic transducers. So they ping the instrument, and they essentially do a triangulation. So we make a circle around the instrument as they ping as they go. And with time and distance, they can get an accurate position on the bottom of the seafloor of where that instrument is based on sort of the acoustic positions of it. So that's they work for an organization called Woods Hole Oceanographic Institute, which is on the East Coast. So that's where they come from. And they have different backgrounds as well to be able to get into sort of that career. So let's open it up for questions, I think now. Let's do some questions, and then maybe we can look at some more videos later. Oh, here's another picture of the OBS. So that's another picture of us deploying this OBS. So it's this yellow thing on top are the floats, and the instrumentation are below that, sort of in this blue box. You're going to have your batteries and your different instrumentation. So let's do some questions, and then I'll talk a little bit more.
Go ahead.
What's the coolest place you've traveled to?
Yeah. So I would say quite recently it's been the Galapagos Islands, just because it's so different. You have the large turtles or the tortoises, and they're amazing. What do they say they were? 500 pounds, almost 600 pounds. So they're just absolutely massive, and they just and they're wild. They just roll, walk through the fields like we would see deer back in Michigan. So you look out in the field, driving with your parents, you look out in your field and there's 5 deer. While here, they look out in the field, they see 5 tortoises. So that was pretty cool. And the different sharks, the different birds. So yeah, I would say, lately that's been one of the been one of the best spots.
Okay, another question.
How long do you stay on the ocean?
Yep. So it really comes down to the length of the expedition. So the scientists put in a proposal to the National Science Foundation, and they say, hey, I want to look at data over this region, for example, where we're going to drop these OBS. And these are my goals, and this is how long it's going to take. The vessel has limitations, so it's normally 4 to 5 weeks that we stay out at one time. And then we come back in, and it's limitations for a few reasons. One, it comes down to food. So before we leave, we do a big supply in the port where we get food, we get fuel, we get equipment, and then we go offshore. So that food and fuel is really the defining factor of how long we can stay off. So, when you're at home and you're watching a good show on TV, maybe playing a game, your mom and dad come home, they honk the horn, and they want you to come out and help with groceries. Who's done that? Anybody? Yeah.
Lots of hands raised.
Yeah, and it's usually the best part of the show. It's usually the best part of the video game. So here we have something similar. When the groceries come, you can see in the picture, so our groceries come in pallets. So we'll have 8 to 10 pallets of groceries. So think in carloads, that would be 8 to 10 carloads of groceries. And all the crew get out on deck, and we stand in a line, and we pass one box from one person to the other, all the way from the pallet on the deck here, or in this case, the truck. So all the way from there, all the way up to the kitchen and the big freezers, the big walk-in freezer and walk-in refrigerator.
Okay. Next question.
How do you get the OBS out of the water?
Wow, fantastic question. So how we get the OBS out of the water? That's a great question. So what we do is the OBS have they have it. Let me go back to this picture. Well, it's hard to see, but maybe on the video. That's okay. On the bottom of the OBS, there's an anchor. So it's either a block of concrete or it's a metal weight. And that the anchor is attached to the OBS with a little hook and a wire. And what we do is when we're ready to recover the OBS, the captain will then sail back to the OBS location. The OBS technicians will use the acoustic transponder to talk to the instrument. So it's like a frequency on your radio. So on the radio, you tune into a certain frequency to hear a certain type of music. So we do the same thing with these. We tune into a certain frequency to talk to this instrument. So we'll wake it up. We'll basically say, hey, wake up. It'll then respond with a health command. And then we tell it to burn the wire. And it sends a charge of electricity to heat up this wire that holds onto this hook. And eventually that wire gets so hot that it breaks. And when it breaks, then that hook releases, and the floats on top of the OBS, which are these yellow floats, they slowly bring it to surface. So depending on the water depth, that could be 45 minutes to surface, or it could be 2.5 hours to float to surface. And then the next question probably is going to be, how do we pick it up? So you see there's this flag on it, you can see. You probably can't see it, but right here where my cursor's at, there's a little light and a beacon. So when it comes to surface, that light will start to blink, and it also sends out a radio message that the bridge is listening to on a certain radio channel. So we all carry, I don't know if you can see it, we all carry radios on us. So at a certain radio channel, the bridge can hear that beacon go off, and we have an instrument on board called an RDF. It's a type of an antenna that can locate where this signal is coming from, and it'll tell us, hey, I hear the signal and it's coming from 60 degrees. So the vessel can turn and they can then sail for it. Then we use grappling hooks and boat hooks to pick the instrument up and lift it up with the A-frame. Yeah, it was a good question.
Go on.
What happens if you run out of food and fuel before you get back to the land?
Well, so that's one of the things that the captain is watching. So the captain is, in charge of the overall vessel. So he's speaking to the chief cook, or we call him on board a chief steward. So they have an inventory of the food that we're using and how fast we're going through it. Sometimes they're big eaters and sometimes they're maybe not so big eaters. What usually goes first is the ice cream, that's pretty important. We almost have to go into shore and get more ice cream, but that usually goes first. And then the chief engineer he's looking at the engines, the fuel, the oil. So they monitor on a daily basis to see how much we're using. And with the trend over time, we can see that number. But, we always take more than we plan. So, they do the numbers at the beginning. They say for 40 days, we need X amount of fuel, but then we always add 20, 30% on top of that to make sure we have extra just in case. For example, we talked about the currents, how they affect speed. So if the seas are rough and the vessel is really going through the seas and it's using a lot of sort of propulsion to be able to move the boat, well, we're using more fuel then as opposed to flat, calm seas. So that's why we always plan for a little bit extra more. Yeah, that's a good question.
Go ahead.
When would you drop the OBS?
When will we drop it?
Yeah.
So how it normally happens, so I showed you on the map before. So we have these green dots. So we have a procedure on board. So the captain sails up to it. So 15 minutes out, he'll call down to us on deck. We'll listen on the radio, and the bridge will say, main deck bridge, we're 15 minutes out. So the crew on the deck will hear that, and they'll start to get everything prepared to be able to drop it. So they'll move the instrument out on a pallet jack below the A-frame. They'll hook the rope up to it that we saw in that video that lifted it out and over and dropped it. The team will have their life jackets on. They'll have their hard hats. their coveralls, any type of PPE or personal protective equipment. And so they'll be ready. The bridge will then call down, main deck bridge. We're 1,500 meters out. As I mentioned before, we use the metric system offshore. So 1,500 meters out, they'll call down for 500 meters out, 100 meters out, and then at 50 meters out. And this whole time, the bridge is slowing down as they get there. And at 50 meters out, the bridge is going maybe 1 to 2 miles an hour or 1 to 2 knots. They'll call down and say that you're good to launch. Then the guys will take it up over the side and drop it. So yeah, that's how we know.
Mhm.
Do you take any pictures or videos of the bottom of the ocean floor?
Could you hear that?
We do take some pictures. So some other vessels. So the Marcus G. Langseth is part of the UNOLS fleet. So the UNOLS fleet is a organization or a fleet of vessels that are run by different universities in the country. So as I mentioned before, we work for Columbia University. I mentioned Woods Hole. They have some boats as well. University of Washington has a boat. Fairbanks up in Alaska has a boat. So there are different boats around the world. So some of them are specialized for having underwater robots, or so they have submarines. For example, there's a vessel called the Atlantis. They have a submarine that people get in and they actually go down and they're able to take samples from the bottom and take pictures. We've had an ROV on here before, and the ROV doesn't have anybody in it. It's a remote vehicle, but it goes down. So it has cables that come up to the boat and it goes all the way down to the bottom. And we're able to take good videos to see the fish, to see the wildlife down there, to see the bottom, to see what type of rocks it is. So yeah, we've done it in the past. We don't do it a lot on here, but we have done it in the past.
One of the questions we had yesterday when we were thinking of questions was, how did you get interested in this type of career?
Yeah. So as I mentioned, I went to University of Michigan, but it starts before that. So when I was in junior high, similar to where you guys are at now, I'm sure, I really liked geology and geography. So I would sort of focus on that. It was interesting to me. I liked reading about it. I liked looking at the different maps. So when I went to high school, because those are the things I liked, I sort of focused my classes sort of in the earth sciences. So a little bit of social studies, geography, chemistry, more science heavy. And then I went to a community college after high school. I went to Jackson Community College, which is a little bit farther south from you guys. But I went to so I went there. And then when I was at the community college, once again, I focused a little bit more on geology, geography, more of those earth sciences. I went to Michigan. I got a degree in geology. And then after that, I sort of, I went to work for the oil and gas world. And then I came to the research world about 5 years ago. So it was sort of following what I liked in junior high, and then high school, junior college, and college, and all the way up until I eventually came here.
Go ahead.
Is your job easy?
So like any job, sometimes it's easy, sometimes it's fun, sometimes it's adventurous. There's a lot of hard work that goes into it as well. Sometimes a little bit of stress, but in the end of the day, it's all about the balance. So when you're doing what you like, it's always fun. Even the hard days are fun. Probably similar to like when you guys have maybe something in sports or in school or in band or in drama or theater or whatever you're doing sort of for your extra activities. Sometimes it's hard to remember your lines, or to go, if you're in football, to practice all day and to run around the field, or if you're in softball, to do different drills on the field. But when you go to that game and you do, and the team does good in the game and you win, all that hard work that leads up to it is paid off. So that's a lot like how work is sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have internet in the ocean?
How good is the internet on the ocean?
Oh, that's a good question. So it's getting a lot better. So a few years ago, I wouldn't be able to do this at all. So we had internet, but essentially you could check your email and that was about it. So in the last 4 or 5 years, the internet has been a lot better. So we have Starlink now on board, and we're able to do streams. The teachers are able to teach classes still. Students are able to attend class. So we're able to sort of continue with normal life when we're away from land, when we're away from our families, things like that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
If you could pick a different job, what would it be?
Could you hear the question?
No.
If you could pick a different job besides this, what would you do?
Well, I think I would enjoy probably something similar to what I'm doing now, but land surveying. So I've always liked to be a land surveyor. So I don't know if anybody knows what that is, but essentially when someone buys property, your parents, some family members, if they buy a house, there's going to be land that's associated with that. And a land surveyor goes out and with some different instrumentation, they measure the location of where that land is at. So the person who buys it knows exactly the fence line, if they want to put a pool in or an addition or a garage. They know when they're going to build it, they're building it on their land and not someone else's land. So I think that's what I would probably end up doing if it wasn't this.
Any other questions out there?
So here in the picture, this is an example of the cabins. So this is where the scientists would stay. So you see it's bunk beds, maybe something similar to what you guys had. They usually don't argue about who gets the top or bottom, but this is an example of the cabin. This is an example of some rough weather. Some rough weather that we had. So you see the water pouring over the side of the ship. This is where I'm standing at now, but behind me you just see a small picture. But these are all the different monitors you see here. So there's 40 different monitors in this room. In this picture, most of them are off, but when we do different expeditions, we'll have some or all of them on, depending on what the expedition is. Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, you.
What was your least favorite subject in school?
My least favorite subject. Oh, that's a good question. Well, I don't know. Probably, for me anyways, everybody's different. But for me, I would probably say Spanish class. And I would only say that because I wasn't very good at it. So that's probably why. Yeah, I liked learning the language. I've been to a lot of countries that speak Spanish. I've been to Spain and Peru and Mexico, Bolivia, Chile. I've been to a lot of different countries that speak it. I wish I would have learned it in school, but it always came hard to me, and I was never able to capture the language.
Yeah.
What was your least favorite core subject?
What was that?
So that was an elective in our school. It's called an elective. So they want to know what your core subject: language arts, social studies, science, or math.
I see. Okay. Let's see. I really can't think about it now. I liked math. Science, obviously, I enjoyed. Chemistry, I wasn't that good in, but it was still fun. Probably English. I don't know. If I had to pick, I'd say English. But I wish I would have studied more of it. Yeah.
Okay. Are there any other questions out there? Yes. One more.
What was your longest time on the ocean?
What's the longest that you've ever been out on the ocean?
So every 45 to 50 days, the vessel goes into port. The longest I've been on the boat without going home is just over 100 days. So 105 days, something like that. Now we were in port a couple times during that period, but yeah, without going home, 105 days. So quite a long time. Yep.
Yeah, great.
Why do you call miles per hour knots?
Why is miles per hour not called knots instead of miles per hour?
Well, no, that's a good question. So at sea, we use something called a nautical mile. So a nautical mile is different than a mile that you would use back home. The difference is a nautical mile is, so you've heard of latitude and longitude, right? Has everybody heard of that?
Yes.
Yep. So a latitude is broken up into degrees. So it's 50 degrees latitude. And a degree is broken up into minutes. So there's 60 minutes in 1 degree of latitude. And the way that a nautical mile works is 1 nautical mile represents 1 minute of arc on the Earth at the equator. So they're able to, a long time ago, the seafarers back in the day were able to measure the miles they traveled based on the latitude reading they had from the height of the sun. So it was sort of a long and complicated answer, but essentially, in the old days, a nautical mile, they could reference where they were on the planet by how many nautical miles they traveled. Does that sort of make sense?
Yes. All right, go ahead.
Do people get seasick?
Yeah, they do. So when I do the orientation for the new scientists that come on board and the new crew, that's one of the things I cover is seasickness. So the main thing that we talk about is don't be embarrassed. Everybody's going to get seasick at one point of time. So if they haven't been seasick yet, they just haven't seen the waves big enough to be seasick. So some people new will be seasick. Some people won't. It just really comes down to a matter of luck. So the main thing that we focus on is don't be embarrassed about it. If you're sick, that's fine. Go to your cabin, go to your bunk, rest, drink plenty of fluids. Tell your coworkers, hey, I don't feel fine. And in a couple days, you'll feel better. They make medicine for it, preventive medicine that a person can take to reduce the symptoms, which is what we suggest. But the main focus is don't be embarrassed about it. It doesn't matter who you are. You're going to get seasick at some point. Yeah. So what do you guys in your career class, what are you talking about now? Is there anything that sort of goes along with what I'm talking about, or is it different?
We just started our business and marketing section is what we're currently in. So we're not quite there, but I can see like marketing for people who trying to get interested in this or sharing your information with like the world.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Okay. Business and marketing. Interesting. Yeah. Yeah. It's, it all comes. Yeah. Marketing is very important, especially, with companies when they market products, but also how you market yourself. When you go to apply for a job, you're essentially your own marketing agency looking for that job. So, a few things that you can do: show up on time, have a good positive attitude. Even with zero talent or zero skills in certain jobs, you can still do well. If you're honest, and if you present yourself in a good manner, you're marketing yourself for that job. Does that sort of make sense?
Yep. Last question.
What time do you go to sleep?
Yeah. So the days on here are different, and everybody works. We call it a shift. So everybody works a different shift on board, and a shift is a time that you're working and a time that you have off. So, for example, myself, I work midnight to noon. So I work 12 hours, midnight to noon, and then I have 12 hours off from noon to midnight. So during that time, I go to the gym, I read a book, maybe watch a movie, and then, of course, sleep. Other people on board, they work sort of a watch type hours. So they'll work 4 hours. So they'll work noon to 4 p.m., and they'll have off until midnight, when they'll work midnight until 4 a.m. And then they work a few other hours during the day. But they work watches. So that person, when they're on board, will always work the 12 to 4 shift. Some of the scientists, when they come on board, they work 8-hour shifts. So there will be a team of 3 people, for example. One person will work noon to 8 p.m., 8 p.m. to 4 a.m., and then 4 a.m. to noon again. So they work sort of a rotating watch. Because when we're offshore, we need to have someone on duty 24 hours a day. So when we have the instrumentation going behind me, we need someone watching it 24 hours a day to make sure that it's recording data, that it hasn't failed, that it's safe. Yeah. So that's what sort of a normal day looks like offshore. And then there's 3 meals a day: breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And then you try to sort of plan to catch those when you're working.
Okay. Unfortunately, our class is about to end and our bell's going to ring in like 3 minutes.
Okay.
Thank you so much for coming. Oh, sit down. Okay. Everybody
Thank
else,
you.
take a seat. I know. So So thank you so much. We really appreciate you giving our time and showing us what you do aboard your ship every single day.
All right. Yeah, great. Thank you. I enjoyed talking to you guys. It was fantastic.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Bye. Bye.
Say bye.
Bye.